Coming to paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Cancel Vacation. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a social justice social media mob looking to cancel her in this all-new E-Steam series adventure. Pre-order E-Steam Cancel Vacation on Amazon.com today. Yesterday, Batman writer James Tynion IV announced that he was going to be leaving the title to focus on creator-owned work. Now, your James Tynion IV isn't the first writer to announce this in as many months. Recent writers to announce that they are focusing more on independent work are writers like Jonathan Hickman and the outgoing writer of Amazing Spider-Man, Nick Spencer. Now, when I take a critical examination of all of these comic book writers who are leaving the big two publishers, Marvel and DC, to focus on creator-owned work, this is a positive step as related to the comic book medium. Now, these writers have worked hard to build an audience on Marvel and DC's platform, and now these writers are now looking to get paid for their hard work over the last couple of years. Now, writers like Scott Snyder, your James Tynion IV, and many others have gone out here and generated six-figure and double five-figure sales for Marvel and DC Comics, and they have not really received the compensation that they deserve from Marvel and DC Comics, because the comic book industry is still under the whole work-for-hire contract, and under a work-for-hire contract, you can go out here and put in years of hard work, and all you're going to get is a page rate and not any royalties whatsoever. So most of your comic writers these days, seeing that all they're going to get is the pay as related to a page rate and not any sort of long-term compensation, realize that it's just not economically productive for them to continue working for companies like Marvel and DC Comics, giving the best years of their lives and giving their best ideas to a multinational corporation, which will go out here and make billions of dollars at their expense and then pay them absolutely nothing for all of their hard work. So what I see happening here with these writers like Jonathan Hickman, Scott Snyder, Nick Spencer, and many others is they are doing what Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and Todd McFarlane did back in 1991 when they formed Image Comics. Now, back in 1991, your Jim Lee, your Rob Liefeld, and Todd McFarlane were out here selling millions of copies of X-Men, Spider-Man, and X-Force, formerly New Mutants, for Marvel, and they were also working under a similar page rate deal. And because they were working under a page rate deal, they were only getting paid for the pages they were working on as related to the work for hire contract that they had. And under that work for hire contract, they were not getting any sort of fair compensation, as I see it, as related to the millions of dollars they were generating for Marvel as related to the millions of sales they were bringing into the publishing house. And they were, in addition to not getting any sort of fair compensation, many of these creators, they were not even given complete creative control as related to the characters because they were somebody else's intellectual property. And these reasons were the reasons why your Jim Lee, your Rob Liefeld, and your Todd McFarlane left Marvel to go out here and form Image Comics. And these are the same reasons why your James Tynion IV, your Scott Snyder, and your Nick Spencer are leaving DC Comics and Marvel Comics to go out here and create creator-owned concepts through Substack. Because on a creator-owned platform, a creator like myself owns the characters, and on a creator-owned platform, the creator is the one who gets 100% of the compensation. And because the creator wants to go out here and profit from their own characters, the way your Todd McFarlane has, because Todd McFarlane is the ultimate success story as related to a creator owning his own characters and owning his own concepts and being able to profit through not only selling comic books but also selling merchandising and licensing them out for merchandise and also getting film and television adaptations. Your Todd McFarlane has gone on to become a millionaire as related to Spawn and the Spawn universe, and he's also even started his own company, McFarlane Toys. So most creators these days are looking at a bigger picture as related to getting compensated for their work. So there's no real incentive for a writer to go out here and work on a popular DC or Marvel Comics character like it was 40 years ago. Now, 40 years ago, if you said you were writing Batman, that meant something because the indies were just a small market. But these days, the indies are starting to become the dominant market as related to comics, and your creators are realizing that they have more money to make if they go independent, because when you go independent, you own the copyright for the character, you own the trademark for the character, and you are the one who can now go out here and negotiate deals with these companies, like the toy companies, like the merchandise companies, and even the movie studios if your character is popular enough. And many of these creators, they have spent years building that following out here because they were able to generate, like Scott Snyder, the double-digit high five-figure sales, and they were able to go out here and get, and like James Tynion IV, revive a dead Batman title. So these writers can go out here, they have an audience, they have a following, and because they have an audience and a following, they can go out here and take their own concepts and make their own concepts marketable for sale on another platform. So this is a positive development for the comic book industry because it shows us that the medium is not the problem, that it's about the content, and the content creators are doing what I'm doing right now, creating their own content to appeal to larger audiences, and they are creating their own concepts so that they can go out here and get compensated for them, because it's a sad thing that Rob Liefeld went out here and created Deadpool, a character that made over $1 billion, and he doesn't even get to get the compensation as related to Marvel, as related to that character, as related to licensing, merchandising, and even able to go out here and get paid for all of his hard work. Now, that's the main reason why so many creators are walking away from companies like Marvel and DC and looking to do things on their own, because a creator today can go out here and if they have a great concept and a great story, they can go out here and build their own audience with technology like print on demand or subscription services, and they can go out here and build their own base and get their own readership, and they don't have to worry about having to spend all of these years like I did back in the day worrying about whether you can go out to one of these Comic-Cons to meet one of these editors, hope, wish, and pray that they see how good your work is. No, these days you can do what I'm doing right now and take your work straight to the audience and build your audience on an online platform and let the audience decide whether your work has merit. That was something that would never ever been thought of in the 80s, back during the black and white era, where people practically had to spend thousands of dollars to get a comic done. But these days, with these creators, they can crowdfund that money, pay an artist, and get that comic to the marketplace to go out here and compete and go out here and build the audience organically. So what's happening now with the comic book industry is people the big creators are having less incentive to deal with Marvel and DC, and because they have less incentive to go out here and deal with Marvel and DC, they're looking at the money that they could make and saying, why should I settle for a page rate when I can get paid thousands as related to an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter for a concept that they own? Why should a creator just sit there and take a $100 or $200 a page of a 22-page story and sit there and possibly make maybe $2,200 or $4,400 a month when they could do an Indiegogo and possibly make anywhere from $50,000 to $400,000 depending on how popular that writer is. I mean, that's what's happening with many of the comic writers these days. They're starting to think more critically, and they're starting to think about their own financial situation, because in the world of writing comics, you are paid an extremely low rate. 1, 2, you don't get any health insurance, and 3, you don't get any sort of retirement. So many of these comic creators are looking at their future in this business, and they're saying to themselves, they need to go out here and build a business model that benefits them long term. Because yes, you are writing a popular character like Batman, but what does that do for the creator once they get older? And how does that help that creator when they're not able to go out here and put fingers to the keyboard or go out here and be able to draw things like commissions? That's a critical question people at Marvel and DC really need to ask, because the way comic creators have been treated is the reason why so many are thinking about leaving and going to go out here and do things on their own. Because many creators, they are thinking about their long-term compensation and building wealth and tangible assets that will be able to help them be able to take care of themselves when they get older and when they are not able to go out here and create like they could in their prime. So I understand why many creators are walking away from Marvel and DC, because it does not really pay at the end of the day for that creator who cannot really even get health insurance or get any sort of retirement. They go out here and generate hundreds of thousands, and back in the 90s, millions of sales, but at the end of the day, they're not getting any sort of fair compensation as related to any of the intellectual properties they create for these companies. And they're saying to themselves, enough is enough. If I've built this audience and I've sold over 100,000 Spider-Mans or 100,000 Batmans or 90,000 Batmans or 50,000 Spider-Mans, then I need to go and take that audience somewhere where they will appreciate me, they will value me, and I will get compensation for all of the work that I put in. That's where a lot of the creators are right now, and they're looking at the comic book market and they're saying to themselves they needed the business model to work for them, because when they see companies like Disney making these MCU movies and them making $1 billion and them getting nothing but small change, they're saying that no, we're going to make the characters and we're going to get full compensation as related to an adaptation. We're going to get full compensation as related to licensing, full compensation as related to merchandising, and build wealth for themselves. So that's why your creators are leaving the big companies, because they don't want to work for small change when they're watching independent creators go out here and make money on platforms like Indiegogo and Kickstarter and even Amazon.com, because when you own the intellectual property, you can put it on multiple platforms, whether it be digital, print, or even different forms of print like your perfect bound and hardcover, and these editions can last longer than a 32-page comic book. So many of the creators out here are looking at the bigger picture, And because they're looking at the bigger picture, they're thinking about the bigger money that they're leaving on the table, and now they're walking away from the comic book mainstream industry to go get that money off the table and get paid for themselves. So when I look at these creators, I believe they're doing the right thing, and they're doing exactly what Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and Todd McFarlane did over 30 years ago. Only this time it's the writers going out here getting the paper the same way the artists got the paper over 30 years ago. And now the writers are now looking to build their brand the same way I'm building the SJS Direct imprint, looking to own all of their intellectual property and looking to go out here and generate wealth from their own creations and looking to go out here and stack that paper for themselves, and instead of giving all of that money away like people did before your Jim Lee, your Rob Liefeld, and Todd McFarlane opened the door for creators to go out here and start working on making their own money and building their own platforms and building their own marketplace to build their own readership and audience without a mainstream publisher in control. So this is a positive direction, and we're going to see more and more creators, I believe, going out here and building their own platforms and building their own audiences like I am right now. And this is something I am eager to see more of, because the more media that's made by other people, the more narratives we get out here. And instead of people following these mainstream media narratives, we get a diversity of stories and a diversity of thought. And instead of us thinking we only need to go make mine Marvel or go out here and get DC, we can go out here and make our own characters into household brands. Now, if you want to pick up my first comic, E-Steam No Good Deed, you can find that comic on Kindle for 99 cents. And if you want to help me be able to get my second comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, to publication, you can donate to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available for pre-order on Kindle. Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Pre-order your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Kindle today.